So welcome to Caroline Scott, and thank you for joining us this week's Thursday 30. We're very, very happy to have Caroline with us today. She is going to provide us with an introduction to Learning Village and how it supports EAL learners with a SEND need. So thank you, Caroline. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I guess just to introduce myself, I'm an author. I'm also the director of our organisation, which is called Across Cultures. And we have evolved out of good practice in school and my research. And we work with learners of all sort of ages, right from primary through secondary and also to adult. And we use quite a fairly unusual methodology in order to teach low-level literacy to learners who have EAL or sometimes a SEND need, and I'll show you how we make those adjustments. So the Learning Village is a blended vocabulary, language structure and reading programme. So we teach the components of reading in a quite a structured way, and that is for EAL, SEND and low-level literacy learners. So just to give you a bit of the background of what we do before I go into the nuts and bolts of kind of how it looks. We have a primary sort of service called the Learning Village, which supports primary learners learning through images. So image is the language of instruction, and we teach through language patterns and language chunks. So that's kind of the way we work. It's an immersive platform. That means that we teach not through translation, even though translation is offered into about 100 different languages. We lead through image, and that is how the learners learn to communicate through that sort of scenario. And I'll show you examples. So we have the primary area, which is called the village, and we teach through a gamified area, so it's quite fun and motivating for the learners. And then the secondary area is called the islands. So it's a similar format, similar methodology, except it's a slightly older look and feel, slightly different gamified area. And then we have the adult area, which is the city. We call it the community village. And that is for adult ESOL learners, often parents as well. And that's another offering. We also do proficiency testing and sort of more new to the part of what we deliver is AI marking of writing. We do consultancy and all sorts of other things. That's not what I'm here to talk to you about today. We're a team of specialists, mostly specialists in language and language acquisition, but also with SEND specialists as well. So I have to say my hat is EAL rather than SEND, but I work with a team of people who offer that and support me also with that SEND area. So you know that if a school is getting training or working with us, then you're in good hands. It's not about just the software that we provide, it's about how we deliver the training to help that school to get to where they need to be and to get the best for the learner. We're quite widely recognised by our peers. But yeah, let's first of all talk about an EAL learner and who they are. So, an EAL learner is defined as English as an additional language learner. It's defined in many different ways by different parties. There is no one line on what an EAL learner is, but from the Department of Education, exposed to a language that is known or believed to be other than English. And that might be a completely fluent learner who just speaks multiple languages. More commonly, we're now terming EAL learners as multilingual in order to emphasize the fact that we support both or multiple languages, not just the dominant one or two. Of course, the challenge we have in the UK often is, and if you're watching them from the UK or from a country where your host language is English, the challenge that learners often have is a lack of exposure to their home language, which means that they're not developing their home language at the same rate as they're developing English, or they're not sort of building that dual language proficiency. And that actually becomes a challenge for learners because they're not it's very difficult to become better at a second language when your mother tongue isn't been developed at the same time. So EAL is an area that some learners who have a SEND need get stuck on because they're not yet proficient and secure in their own language, and then we're layering on another language and they learn that other language not very well, and they have all sorts of patchy kind of sort of fundamentals in the home language, and then we're trying to sort of add this extra layer. And you can also end up with something called subtractive bilingualism, which is that a learner learns to speak and read and write in English, and to the detriment of their home language, which doesn't benefit them either. So for us and the learners that we work with on the Learning Village, we're really talking about those learners who are lower level proficiency levels, all the way up to those that need perhaps support in class, who need just that extra bit of structure in order to be able to articulate themselves well. Obviously, we're working with many SEND learners, and we work with certain types of SEND learners. So those that have perhaps dyslexia, autism, speech and language communication needs. We'll work with hearing impaired learners and those that have selective mutism. And we have guidance and support for schools on how they can go about supporting those particular needs. And the reason we're able to support those particular learners well is because of our methodology of learning through images, which I'll show you. So, of course, a learner can be any of the three. They can be just EAL, they can just have SEND need, they can just have low-level literacy needs, or they can have a multiple of those, needs. And every learner is completely different. And so every profile that we set up within the Learning Village suits that particular learner's needs based on what you decide. So you have a teacher area where you accommodate for their needs based on what you know about that learner and their needs. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a second. So this is the Learning Village. Like I said, it's presented in a game, and we'll go in and have a look at how it looks and also the adjustments that you can make for these types of learners. You go to different places in the village, you learn English, and you make a virtual population, and that virtual population populates your village, and you can upgrade your village or your islands area. Village, remember, is primary, islands are secondary. And we have a variety of online and offline support. So some learners need more independent learning. They're more able to support themselves independently, but a lot of learners, especially if they do have particular SEND needs, they will want some sort of teaching support to go with it as well, to model the learning, to be able to structure their learning in a certain way. So we have online and offline support. So everything they access online, they can also access offline, so you can teach through it. And we have a particular methodology, which I'll share with you, to show how we start with speaking and listening, and we go through a cycle of learning that then leads into sort of early stage writing and so forth. So we have the online lessons, and we also have the scaffolded printable resources, which I'll share with you. We have 4 learning journeys, and this goes back to the components of reading and teaching a learner to read. So when we have an EAL learner who needs to learn to read, it's not the same as a learner who's learning to read, who's been a native English speaker all their life, because they don't have the vocabulary in English in order to be able to then learn the words that go with that vocabulary that they understand. So what we need to do is teach the vocabulary along with reading. We can't teach phonics at the expense of the vocabulary. That has to all come together. So the tool that we offer leads with vocabulary and leads with meaning. So we have a phonics program, which is a sort of synthetic decodable phonics. And we have a synthetic reading embedded in that, synthetic reading program, so decodable reading program. But we also offer, alongside that, what we call survival language, which is the basics of English. You can decode most of the English language, but a lot of survival language you use is not easily decodable. So we teach functional, high frequency words through this social functional language that is not decodable. So there's what we call an analytical approach, so whole word approach, alongside the decodable approach. So we have this kind of two-pronged attack, if you like. So I'll show you the survival language and all the high frequency words and how we teach that through context, and how we teach the phonics as well. We also have curriculum content, which we provide in simple, easy to digest language chunks, language patterns, like I suggested or spoke about earlier. So you'll see academic language through repeated language patterns to help learners to own that sentence and to own that language, and then just interchange one or two words within the sentence. So this is really helpful for EL learners, really helpful to provide an infrastructure, a real sort of, structure that they could use in apply to lots of different contexts. And we also have reading for what we call survival language, which is actually high frequency word reading. So learners being able to read those high frequency words, which is so important. So the learning village is used for any language background because of its image-based methodology. So some learners who perhaps they might have a SEND need, but they also speak a language that perhaps isn't written. So then they're probably not literate when they come to you. So it's suitable for those learners. But also some learners come from a language perhaps that it might be written, but perhaps they've had a patchy education, or perhaps their sort of education has started quite late because in their country they didn't start learning until they're sort of 7 or 9, in which case they're not literate, they've not learned to read and write at those early stages. So we're trying to support them with learning to read and write English when perhaps their foundations aren't there with their home language. So like I said, we can use it for independent learning. And what we want to do is skill the learner up to know how to learn, because that's half the challenge, that they know how to carry on learning when you're not with them, to work in a small group. So being able to unpick certain areas that they perhaps don't feel very comfortable in and teach them those sort of secure structures to help them then apply to other contexts. And for differentiation in class, be that small group or be that sort of the wider mainstream class where they're not accessing lessons on, I don't know, resistance, or, it might just be being able to communicate how to go and buy something from the cafe. So we support with all those areas. So in terms of working with SEND needs, the key themes really that we bring out that are useful within the Learning Village are the fact that it is embedded in these concrete images, and they are all photographs or largely photographs. And we use this sort of cycle of learning of assess, learn, practice and assess. And I will show you inside the actual village so you can see how that works. We work through modelling in an environment which is very much the same as the learner login. So the learner has a login, you as a teacher have a login, the learner can learn in their sort of gamified environment, but the teacher has exactly the same access to be able to model in that environment too. So whatever you're modeling as a teacher, the learner equally is able to access that same style of teaching and learning. We do gradual building of skills. So like I said, we teach the components of reading. So we might teach vocabulary, and then we teach the language structure. We also will teach other elements like punctuation. We'll teach how you understand grammar, but we don't lead with grammar. So that there's certain sort of elements or components of reading that we're teaching that's above and beyond perhaps what you might teach a native English speaker, because we're very aware of the I guess, want of another word, but a deficit of vocabulary at that age. We teach in these language chunks and language patterns. It's always thematic. So every lesson that we produce is thematic. It has to be, because we teach through images. You can't have an image in isolation and know what it means. Well, you can, but it's very difficult to deduce unless it comes as a group of images under the same theme. And we have scaffolded journeys, all printables, so that's useful as well. So let's go in and have a little look at the actual village itself. If you've arrived a bit late, it would be great if you can just pop your name but your kind of role in the chat. It'd be great for me to understand a little bit more about your context. I've also dropped in the chat a link to the Learning Village itself. So it might be that you want a free trial. There's a no obligation free trial that you can access through this session, and we can get you set up. You can get a learner logged in and see if it works for you. So let's have a little look at the Learning Village itself. So this is the Learning Village, and You just need to register on your free trial here. The link I've given you goes straight onto it. But this is what it looks like when you log in and get access. You won't be able to do that from that link. I'd have to actually set that up for you just to make sure you've got what you need. So you can see here in this environment, it gives you the learner booklets. You've got assessment. For EAL learners, we assess them according to their English proficiency rather than a reading age, because obviously it's kind of almost a little unfair to give them a reading age when it's just about their proficiency in English. And when we go onto the proficiency in English scale, you'll be able to see a sort of a range of proficiency, and then we align it to what we call BEL or CFR or other proficiency scales. So we've got a teaching area where you can look at the sort of modelled area for learners. For them for you as a teacher to model, and also you can enroll learners into the actual platform. Then we have a number of resources you can create and all sorts of help. But let's have a look at the actual area of teaching. So I've got primary and secondary area here, and I've actually sort of loaded them up earlier. So this is the primary area. Now this looks very busy for a learner who has particular needs, and you can reduce flashing. When you actually log in as a learner, you don't see this fully populated area. It's all pretty much blank and with just one area flashing, and you go to that one area, which would be the treehouse. So because this is a demo area, I can go everywhere and I can navigate myself, and you adjust this area to suit the learner's needs. So you can do things like just give them the phonics journey, or you can like I said, reduce flashing. You can slow down game timers. You can enlarge images. You can do a sort of various things. Reduce the reading load by having a preference for image to audio as opposed to image to word. You can do all sorts. So this is what we call survival language area, or it's sort of high frequency word area, and this is how we build up the ability to read. And I'll just kind of go into one particular item to show you the methodology we use. So this is teaching facial descriptions. So it'd be something like blue eyes, and then hair descriptions might be brown hair. So we're teaching there almost sort of just vocabulary items. And then we move into language structures. So I'll just show you sort of an example. There's always this very familiar format. So we assess the learner. There's a learn section, practice and assess. And it's always in that cycle, and it repeats so that the learner knows where they are at all times. So if I click onto the learn page, you can see how sort of simple it's laid out. And equally, you can set the learner to have just access to a certain number. So I can listen.
Blue eyes.
So hopefully you can hear that. It said blue eyes. It's a human voice. They can listen slowly.
Blue eyes.
And we record. So blue eyes. And that will actually track what they're saying and record that they've, or basically track that they've said what you wanted them to say. And then they can play back. One by one, so they can have a go. And when we teach through this, we model that. So we might, start off with something like this. We might say, what are we learning today? And they might say, oh, blue eyes. And you say, great, what's this one? And they might not know what brown eyes is. And obviously, if they know, oh, you move on. Maybe you want it sort of larger so you can kind of zoom in to help learners to be able to see that. Maybe you want a translation. So there is options. Say, for example, you don't know what, let's see, freckles. So maybe you don't know what an eye is, and you can click on the word and it will give you it in the home language, but also in an image as well. So that can be really helpful for those learners who, are literate in the home language. There's usually an audio function for it as well, but also those that aren't perhaps proficient in reading in their own language, they have the image to support them as well. So you can go through and teach them by showing and hiding, having a go, All of these come with a set of resources that you can download to support the learners, card games and lots of speaking and listening games to help them to be able to learn these words in a fun way, repeating that language again and again before they put pen to paper. So we can go through and listen and have a go. And then the learner goes through and practices a few of those items. So if I just practice here, you can see the words green eyes appear at the bottom. And if they can't do it, they can go back and have a look at the learn page and see what it is, listen to it again.
Green eyes.
And then they can go back and say, okay, that was green eyes. Here's green eyes. I can have a go. So
Grey eyes.
So the idea is that learners will always be successful. They shouldn't really get stuck on this. They should always be able to go back and learn or access the learn page. Once they've practiced this, which is lots of different variations of audio to image or image to text. And like I say, you can prefer audio to image. You can't set it wholly to audio to image, but we certainly can upweight that. And then at the end they assess, and you compare the assessment at the beginning to the assessment at the end, and then they move on to move into taking that vocabulary and using it into a sentence structure. So this is learning the vocabulary, and then we'll find the actual language structure with that vocabulary embedded into it. So you can see here, beard, blue eyes that they've learnt before. Maybe we forgot what blue is. Again, we can click on the word and it's going to give you it in your home language. That's the home language we set for the learner when we enrolled them, and the image that's associated with it. So you can see here, beard, blue eyes, curly hair. They'll know all these words because we've learnt them within the program beforehand. But here we're now teaching that sort of chunk, that language part chunk. He has a, he has a, he has a. And of course, they're going to come across these this challenge of, I have. Why is that has? Why is that have? We don't lead with grammar, but we build grammar into our sentence patterns. We do provide grammar sort of help there, but this is about learning the structure, how it's correctly said, and interchanging the vocabulary so that they learn it as a whole. So it's this different, slightly different approach. Do feel free to drop questions in the chat if they're sort of as I go. I don't mind answering those. So then you see we're moving from have to doesn't have. So he doesn't have blue eyes, and it's built step by step. And then we also have associated reading, because when we use this very formulaic vocabulary, we need to move from the formula into real language use. So we have associated readers as well, and schools who use this, because it's usually the school that gets it. Or perhaps in some circumstances we work with local authorities or sort of across multi-academy trusts, but the school is the area, the person or the people that we train, and we'll do an introduction. They have a go, see if something that's going to support their learners, and if it is, we do a couple of training sessions, so an hour virtually at the beginning to get them up and running with the right customized environment to support their learner. And then 8 weeks later, how are you getting on? How's it going? So we certainly support our schools and help them to get what they need. So we're trying to build capacity, really. So this is the reading area that goes with the survival language. And you can see that was the lesson that we did the vocabulary on, and we don't open up the reading unless they've done the associated session for the vocabulary learning. And this is a fluency lesson. So if we click on the reading, you can see it's very short and sweet. They've learnt these words before because that's what we've already taught. So all these words are coming up again. Let's say they don't know what the word come is. Again, you can click on the word and it will give you the image and in the home language and supported by audio. But also you can see we're using real language use. So we've abbreviated I have into, I've. We've got the brown eyes in there. We're talking about, the mum's eyes. So that's the apostrophe S, the has. And they get to have a go as well at reading it. So this will read out the audio. And when they're asked to record, they're not asked to record the entire lot. It's just a chunk. So you can see it wants my mum's eyes are blue, and that will record it and check. And what's happening in the background as well is that the system is determining my pronunciation and how well I'm reading, and there's a track in the background so you can see what words learners are finding difficult or might need help with. So there's a whole results area going on in the background. And like I say, there's all a lot of resources to go with each of these as well. So if I click on the practice
Hello,
game,
my name is Sheila.
so you can see there that they're listening to the audio, and then they're going to have to follow on. They can listen slowly if they want. Then they've got to choose those words. This is a reading exercise. They're really going to have to follow and try and put those words in. So I've got blue eyes. Maybe I get it wrong, and it will correct whatever I get wrong after I've had a go. So it's pretty systematic in how it works. It really does scaffold from vocabulary level to sentence level into that sort of more text level to support those learners. So that's, say, if you like, the survival language, or what we sometimes call as the sort of functional language, social language, high frequency word language, call it what you will. It's our, say our top 2,000 word high frequency words that makes up about 80% of the words we use every day. So that's super useful. Then we've got the lessons to help in class. So you could click in and look at lessons to do in music or science. Conscious of time, so I'm just going to whiz into this now. Let's say we've got, I don't know, electricity, and you will be able to access conductors. And this is the kind of sentences. So this teaching does and does not. And of course, the word conduct and electricity, and that's equally going to help you with, what electricity is with an image. Equally, we have a phonics area. So the phonics is super useful as well. And that allows you to go through and learn, first of all, matching words that go with the, I'll show you one briefly. So let's say we're teaching a digraph. So ch, and you can see we'll have some decoded, and then some words will be blended. So this will say ch op, and this one will probably say rich, and they learn those. Then they go through and match the phoneme through to their corresponding word, or the image to the phoneme, and then they go through and word build themselves. So it really does help. So it's really useful in line with a sort of a phonics program, or if you're teaching phonics as well. It doesn't include British Sign Language. Carly, you're back probably to tell me I'm almost out of time.
I was going to tell you about the question from Julie, but that is also coming towards the end.
Yeah, okay. So there's also this phonics area as well, and then you've got the reading to go with the phonics as well. What I haven't shown you, which I'll very briefly touch on, is all of the resources that go with it. So you can easily upload your own lessons, but equally you can do things like this. So ask AI, I want a word level resource, and I want to, it's going to be on rainforests. I'm going to have nouns. I want it for a 9-year-old. I'm going to have this proficiency level, and it's going to create resources for me that I can download and use. And we do that for text level. So I could have it in, let's say I'm going to do it in Czech, visualize. So that's going to create all those resources for me. It's just loading up. Actually, it's doing it this way, isn't it? View resources and print. So there you go. You've got all your resources, which you can amend in both languages. You've got snakes and ladders games. You've got matching for meaning, first letter only, writing prompts. So at the touch of the button, you can basically get all sorts of resources to support those lessons. And we equally have every lesson you see on the Learning Village, you can access it. So you could go to ready-made resources. Here's all of the ones that we made earlier. So you can do the lesson on descriptions. So if I just, find that lesson, I would just search for it. Description. Let's just write description. There we go. And that will access all of the resources that are associated that I can amend. And equally, so that was one of the lessons we looked at. It's going to pop up here, and there you go. There's all your resources which you can click on and amend. And if you amend,
can you share them with colleagues, Caroline? Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. So you have a school login, and then that school login, it gives you access to all of the, the teachers in the school, so you can do that. And you can also assign them. Once you've created these, you just upload to the learner's profile, and the learner can learn it independently. So you can then be having access to that whole learning environment offline, and then you just load it to the learner, and they can learn it afterwards or before.
Amazing.
Front loading.
Amazing.
Yeah, so
Julie had another question. She said, is progress evidence-based?
yeah, so the progress area, I'll just go in and show you a progress area. So let's say I've got a particular learner here. I don't know which one has a profile for it. So you should be able to access the learner's results. So it will show you how much time they've spent on it, how many lessons they passed, what progress they made in what lessons. You'll also be able to say what level they were when they started doing their survival language or their functional language, and how they're progressing through those proficiency scales. And then we also have other more summative tests that you can assign them that are diagnostic. So we have reading assessments, listening assessments, writing assessments. We have quite a lot of assessments. So it depends whether you want to dip in and get an idea, like a formative assessment, to know what to teach next in terms of survival language. So you can just assign, say, a high frequency word assessment. Let me just show you there. So this is my first set of high frequency word assessments. I set my learner on it, and then it will tell me what holes they've got in their vocabulary knowledge or language structure I teach to need. Or you can get an overview of what their proficiency level is in reading, what their proficiency level is in writing, and next steps for writing. It just depends what you want. I mean, assessment is huge. It's just what you want to get out of it. And just before I finish, we've also got all these supports for learners who have SEND need. So, for example, guidance for schools on how to accommodate for learners who have perhaps autism or dyslexia. Like, we'll have a dyslexia font, or we'll have, certain amendments that we feel you need to make to that profile to help those particular learners. So you can see here we can uncheck reading fluency lessons so they don't have an overload of that, or you check certain fonts there that you could choose. So yeah, it's a huge tool, and it requires training in order to be to start it, but it's fantastic for those learners and schools that do use it.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Caroline. Just checking that anyone has any other questions, Caroline, before we end. Sure.
If you're interested in a free trial, I've popped the link in the chat. I'll pop it in again. Pricing is very low cost, so please don't make that a decision if you were trying to come on board. Your cost per learners are pretty low, but all of our pricing is also displayed online, so do have a look and sign up for a free trial. It's completely no obligation. You can just try it, see, and then then stay or not.
So Julie has just one more question. She's talking, I think this is goes back to an evidence-based question, but yes, she's asked whether or not there's any analysis that's been carried out on the impact of progress.
Ah, right. Okay.
So like research.
Yes, absolutely. So we have a whole area here on case studies. So it depends what kind of context that you come from. So for example, this was well, there's quite a few here. This is a large scale. No, there's one. There's a large group. So this was a significant cohort that we had to keep anonymous for various reasons, for a group of 55 schools that we used. And you can read it yourself. I'm happy to pop that into the chat for you. But there's a number of different evidence-based case studies in there as well that you can access if you go to info and then testimonials and case studies. We've done quite a lot.
Amazing.
You're welcome.
Hope that answers your question, Julie.
Hopefully.
Yes. Great. Thank you, she says. Oh, that's brilliant. Then thank you so much for your time today, Caroline.
You're most welcome. Thanks, everyone.
Exciting to get started.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.